My parents think I'm a student. What am I studying there? Tests, session. And I've been out of university for a year. I live like a homeless person in a dormitory. I work all sorts of part-time jobs, and every day I'm afraid of a call from my mother. I need to get this off my chest. My parents still think I'm a student, going to lectures, passing exams, building a future. The truth. I dropped out a year ago. I've been living like a ghost in my old dorm room, scraping by on random side jobs, and every day I'm terrified of getting a call from my mom asking how classes are going. It started so innocently, or maybe stupidly. I was the first in my family to go to university, and the pride in their eyes was like oxygen to me. I thought I could handle it, but the reality of studying something I never really wanted hit me hard. The lectures felt endless, the assignments impossible, and the sense of being trapped in someone else's dream just crushed me. I didn't even realize how deep I was sinking until one morning, instead of going to class, I just stayed in bed. That one skipped lecture turned into a week, then a month. Soon, I stopped showing up completely. At first, I told myself it was temporary. I'll just take a little break. I'll catch up later. But the more I avoided it, the harder it became to even consider walking back into that building. Shame started eating me alive. Every time I thought about emailing a professor or asking for help, my chest tightened, and I'd distract myself with anything. Video games, walking aimlessly, or just staring at the ceiling. Eventually, I stopped pretending even to myself. I had failed. But instead of telling my parents, I doubled down on the lie. Now, my life is this bizarre double existence. To my parents, I'm still their ambitious child, studying hard in the city. They ask about exams, and I invent grades. They ask about professors, and I make up names. They talk about my future career, and I nod along, forcing a smile. Meanwhile, the reality is that I live in a tiny dorm room I technically have no right to stay in anymore. I've become friends with the cleaning lady because she doesn't ask questions. I eat instant noodles, work odd jobs, carrying boxes at warehouses, cleaning, even doing deliveries on a bike I borrowed from a guy who barely remembers my name. The scariest part is how good I've gotten at lying. My parents send me a little money every month for books and food, and I stretch it just enough to survive. Sometimes I tell them I'm too busy studying to come home for the weekend, when in reality I'm just ashamed to face them. On the rare occasions I do visit, I carry an old backpack filled with random papers, just so it looks like I brought study materials. My mom always asks to make me tea and tells me how proud she is. Every time, it feels like a knife in my chest. The funniest and most humiliating moment so far? Last Christmas, my dad proudly introduced me to a family friend as our future lawyer. He made this big speech about how I was working so hard, how one day I'd make a difference, how I'd change the world. I laughed along, pretended to be embarrassed, but inside I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. That night, I went back to the dorm, sat on my mattress with its torn sheet, and just cried silently for hours. Here's the worst part. Nobody knows. Not my parents, not my friends from back home, not even the people in the dorm. To them, I'm just that weird guy who keeps to himself, works odd hours, and never talks about his classes. I'm living this constant, exhausting performance, and sometimes I don't even remember what the truth is anymore. Am I a student? No. But do I feel like a dropout? Not really. It's like I'm suspended in this fake reality where every day is borrowed time. And yet, I can't bring myself to confess. Because if I do, everything changes. The disappointment in my parents' eyes would kill me. The shame of admitting I wasted their money, their trust, and their pride, it feels unbearable. So I keep living this lie, waking up every morning in that tiny room, pretending I'm heading to class when really I'm going to mop floors or unload trucks. So yeah, my big secret is that I'm not who my family thinks I am. I'm not a hardworking student with a bright future. I'm just some dropout hiding in plain sight, terrified of a phone call that could expose everything. Have you ever lied to your family about something this big? Do you think I should finally tell them, or keep the secret until I figure out what to do with my life? I thought I could keep this up forever. Lie after lie, story after story. I even started making schedules in my notebook, pretending they were lecture timetables, just in case my parents ever asked me to show them. But the longer this went on, the messier it became. It wasn't just about skipping classes anymore. It was about inventing an entire life that didn't exist. I had to remember fake exam dates, fake professor names, fake grades. I became a full-time actor in a play no one else knew about. And let me tell you something. Lying like this isn't easy. It's not just the guilt. It's the details. Like when my mom casually asked, "So, what textbooks are you using this semester?" And my brain went completely blank. I panicked, grabbed my phone, and searched random book titles online while pretending I was checking my notes. I rattled off a few names, and she nodded, proud as ever. Meanwhile, my heart was racing so hard I thought she'd hear it through the phone. The worst is my dad. He calls sometimes just to talk about my future. He'll ask me things like, "So, when you graduate, what kind of job do you want? Do you think you'll stay in the city or come back home?" And I'll just make things up. I'll talk about internships I've never had, classes I've never taken, professors I've never met. And he listens so carefully, like he's trying to memorize every word because he's so proud. Every time, it feels like I'm stabbing him in the back with my words. But here's the thing. I don't just feel guilt. Sometimes I feel anger too. At myself, mostly, but also at this whole system. I never wanted to study what I was pushed into. It was my parents' dream, not mine. I wanted something else, something creative, but I was too scared to fight for it. And now I'm stuck in this weird limbo where I'm not brave enough to chase my own path, but also not honest enough to admit I've abandoned theirs. It's a special kind of hell, being trapped between who you are and who everyone thinks you are. To survive, I've learned to hustle. You'd be surprised how resourceful you get when you're desperate. I've done everything. Washing dishes in cafes, unloading delivery trucks, cleaning offices at night, even helping out at construction sites for cash under the table. The pay is terrible, but it keeps me fed. Sometimes I work so late that I crash on my mattress still wearing my work clothes, too exhausted to even eat. Then, the next day, I'll text my mom about how busy I am with exams. The contrast is insane. There was one night that almost broke me. I had spent 12 hours carrying heavy boxes in a warehouse, my back aching, my hands covered in cuts. I got back to the dorm around midnight, collapsed on the bed, and saw 3 missed calls from my mom. My stomach dropped. I called her back, and she immediately asked, "Sweetie, how are you? Have you eaten? How are your studies?" I wanted to scream the truth. Tell her I was starving, exhausted, and that I hadn't studied a single thing in a year. Instead, I forced a smile into my voice and said, "I'm fine, Mom. Just studying a lot. It's tough, but I'm managing." She told me how proud she was and how she and Dad were saving money to buy me a new laptop for my studies. I hung up and just stared at the ceiling for an hour, numb. But here's the part that really keeps me up at night. I'm not just lying about school. I'm lying about my whole identity. Old friends sometimes text me, asking how university life is going. They post pictures of themselves with their classmates, smiling, graduating, moving forward. And me. I lie. I tell them I'm busy with projects, studying hard, preparing for exams. I've created this fake version of myself that's successful, hardworking, normal. And the real me, this dropout scraping by, is invisible. The irony is, nobody suspects a thing. When I visit home, I put on the show. I dress neatly, bring fake study notes, even complain about tough professors, just to make it believable. My parents beam with pride. They show me off to relatives. And I smile, nod, and play my part. Then I go back to the city, lock myself in my tiny room, and return to my shadow life. The closest I ever came to being exposed was a few months ago. I bumped into an old classmate on the street. Someone who actually still attends the university. My heart almost stopped. He asked, "Hey, how are you? Haven't seen you in forever. What classes are you taking this semester?" I froze. For a split second, I considered telling him the truth. But then I lied again. I made up a professor's name, mumbled something about being late to a lecture, and bolted before he could ask more questions. That night, I lay in bed sweating, convinced he would run into my parents someday and tell them he never sees me in class. But so far, nothing has happened. Sometimes, I wonder how long I can keep this charade going. Another year. 2. Until graduation day? What then? What will I say when my parents ask to attend the ceremony, to see me walk across the stage? Will I fake an illness? Pretend there was some administrative issue? Or will everything finally collapse, all at once? For now, I just keep going. One day at a time. One lie at a time. Hoping nobody notices. But deep down, I know this won't last forever. What would you do if you were me? Come clean now and break your parents' hearts, or keep the lie alive a little longer and pray for a miracle. I always thought the scariest thing would be my parents finding out. That was the nightmare that kept me awake, imagining my mom crying, my dad's disappointed silence. But it turns out, the real terror isn't the discovery itself. It's the close calls. Those moments when the walls of my fake life start cracking, and I have to scramble to hold everything together. And recently, I had the closest call yet. It all started with a text from my dad. "We're coming to visit you this weekend." Surprise! My heart dropped into my stomach. A visit? Here. To the dorm where I wasn't even supposed to be living anymore? For a whole year, I had managed to avoid this exact situation, always making excuses about being too busy or having exams. But this time, there was no warning, no chance to prepare. Just a cheerful message that felt like a death sentence. My brain went into overdrive. I couldn't let them see my room. It was a disaster. Clothes everywhere, instant noodle wrappers piled up, the mattress half torn. Definitely not the room of a hardworking student. I considered begging them not to come, but I knew that would make them suspicious. They'd already been talking about visiting for months, saying they missed me. So I panicked, cleaned the room like my life depended on it, and begged my one semi-friend in the dorm to lend me his textbooks. He looked at me weird but handed them over. I spent hours placing them neatly on my desk, like props in a stage play. When my parents finally arrived, I plastered on the biggest fake smile I could manage. My mom hugged me so tight I almost forgot about the lie for a second. My dad looked around the room and said, "Wow, you've made yourself at home here." I laughed nervously, praying they wouldn't notice how the room looked more like a storage closet than a student space. The visit wasn't long, just a few hours. But those hours felt like years. They asked about classes, and I rattled off more lies, rehearsed so many times they almost sounded true. My mom flipped through the borrowed textbooks, nodding proudly. My dad asked about my professors, and I spewed out fake names without blinking. It was like playing poker with my own life on the line. But then came the moment that nearly exposed everything. My dad, trying to be casual, said, "Why don't we go see your campus? Show us where you spend your days." My stomach twisted. I froze. I stammered something about the campus being closed for the weekend, and not wanting to bother security. My dad looked confused. My mom frowned. For a terrifying second, I thought they would insist. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they could hear it. But luckily, my mom just sighed and said, "Next time then." When they finally left, I collapsed on my bed, drenched in sweat. I had pulled it off, but barely. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about how fragile my entire lie had become. One wrong move, one unexpected question, and the truth could explode in my face. And yet, even after all that, I didn't confess. You'd think the fear of almost being caught would push me to finally tell them. But no. If anything, it made me double down. I started planning even more carefully, rehearsing answers to possible questions, memorizing details to make my lies bulletproof. It's insane how much mental energy I spend maintaining this illusion. Sometimes I think if I had put half as much effort into my actual studies, I'd be graduating by now. Then, as if fate wasn't done messing with me, another disaster struck. A classmate from my first semester, someone who actually knew I had dropped out, spotted me at a cafe where I was bussing tables. He stared at me for a second, then smirked. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said. My blood ran cold. I mumbled something about just earning some extra cash on the side, but I could see in his eyes that he didn't believe me. The thought of him running into my parents one day makes me nauseous. Lately, the weight of the secret is crushing me. I've started having nightmares where my parents show up at the dorm unannounced again, or worse, at the campus itself, looking for me. In the dream, they find out everything. My mom bursts into tears. My dad just stares at me with that quiet disappointment that says more than words ever could. I wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. But here's the part one hate admitting the most. A small part of me is almost relieved at the idea of being caught. Because then I wouldn't have to carry this anymore. The decision would be taken out of my hands. No more lying, no more pretending. Just the ugly truth, laid bare. Of course, the fear outweighs that tiny relief, so I keep choosing the lie. But the thought lingers, haunting me. The funny thing. From the outside, I probably look like I have it all together. A student in the city, chasing a future, hardworking and independent. People would probably even envy me. But if they looked closer, they'd see the cracks. They'd see a scared, exhausted dropout clinging to a lie that's eating him alive. And the craziest part is, I don't even know what my endgame is. Do I keep lying until graduation day, and then fake some story about going abroad for work? Do I disappear completely, cut ties, and start over somewhere else? Or do I finally gather the courage to sit my parents down and tell them the truth, no matter how much it hurts? For now, I keep waking up in this little room, putting on my act, and praying today isn't the day everything collapses. But the cracks are spreading, and I know it's only a matter of time before something gives. So I'll ask you, what's worse? Living in a lie forever, or destroying the people who love you with the truth? I always thought I could control the timing. That if I planned carefully enough, rehearsed my answers, kept my parents at a safe distance, the secret could stay buried. But life doesn't work that way. Lies have a way of slipping out, like cracks spreading through glass. And last month, everything almost collapsed in the worst way possible. It started with a simple mistake. My mom called me while I was at work. Not just any job. This time I was cleaning offices late at night. My hands smelled like bleach, my clothes were damp with sweat, and my phone buzzed in my pocket. I answered, trying to sound casual, but the noise of vacuums and clattering trash bins gave me away. My mom immediately asked, "Where are you? That doesn't sound like your dorm." My brain froze. For a second, I considered hanging up. Instead, I lied again. I told her I was at a group study session, and that someone had put on music in the background. She laughed, bought it, and moved on. But the panic in my chest didn't fade. That one slip made me realize how fragile my house of cards really was. A few days later, the real disaster hit. My parents called again, this time with excitement in their voices. My dad said, "We've been invited to a reunion in your city. We'll be there for the weekend. And guess what? We'll finally get to meet some of your professors and see your university. Isn't that great?" I swear my heart stopped. Meeting professors? Visiting campus? That was my nightmare come to life. I mumbled something about being too busy with exams, but my dad just laughed. "We'll only need a few hours, don't worry. We can work around your schedule. We'll be so proud to see you in your element." I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long time, staring at the peeling paint on my dorm wall. My whole body was trembling. There was no way to stop them this time. They were coming. The truth was about to crash down on me, whether I liked it or not. The next few days were torture. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I thought about my parents standing in front of a professor who had never even heard my name, my stomach twisted into knots. I even considered running away, just disappearing before they arrived. But where would I go? I had no money, no real plan. Just fear. When the weekend finally came, I met them at the train station. My mom hugged me like always, my dad slapped me on the shoulder, and I forced myself to smile. We walked together through the city, and for a few hours, I managed to distract them with cafes and sightseeing. But eventually, my dad said the words I had been dreading. "Let's see the university now." I froze. My mouth went dry. My mom was already pulling out her phone to take pictures. My dad was grinning, excited like a kid. And me. I was dying inside. We walked toward the campus, and with every step, I felt like I was walking toward my execution. When we finally stood in front of the main building, I thought I might actually faint. My dad pointed and said, "There it is. So impressive." My mom snapped photos, beaming. Then my dad said, "Come on, show us your classroom. Maybe we'll meet one of your professors." That's when it happened. I broke. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, my vision blurred, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out, "We can't go inside." My parents turned to me, confused. I stammered something about security rules and not having permission, but my dad frowned. He looked at me in a way that made my blood run cold. Suspicion. For the first time in a year, I saw doubt in his eyes. We stood there in silence for what felt like forever. My mom tried to lighten the mood, saying we could just take pictures outside, but I could feel the tension thick in the air. My dad kept staring at me, like he was trying to read the truth on my face. I smiled, I laughed, I made excuses, but deep down, I knew the mask was slipping. That night, back in my dorm, I didn't sleep at all. My parents had gone to their hotel, but I kept replaying the scene over and over. My dad's frown. My mom's slightly forced smile. The way my lies suddenly didn't feel so bulletproof anymore. I knew then that it was only a matter of time before everything unraveled. The funny thing. Part of me almost wanted it to. Living with this secret has turned me into a stranger. I avoid old friends. I hide from classmates. I dodge calls. My entire life is built on running away. And standing there in front of the university, feeling the weight of my parents' trust pressing down on me, I realized I couldn't keep this up much longer. But still, I didn't confess. Not that night, not the next day, not even when my parents hugged me goodbye and said how proud they were. I just kept lying, even as my inside screamed. Now, weeks later, the tension hasn't left. If anything, it's worse. Every phone call feels like an interrogation. Every unexpected knock on my dorm door makes my heart race. Every time I see my dad's name on my phone screen, I'm convinced this is the moment he's found out. I know the collapse is coming. I can feel it. And I don't know if I'll survive the fallout. So tell me, is it better to rip the bandage off and confess now, or let the lie keep rotting until it finally destroys me? I always thought I'd have more time. That I could stretch the lie just a little longer, buy myself a few more weeks, a few more months. But the truth doesn't wait forever. It has claws. It digs its way out, no matter how hard you try to bury it. And for me, the moment finally came, not in some dramatic confrontation, not in a movie-style breakdown, but in the quietest, most ordinary way possible. It was a Sunday evening. I was in my dorm, eating instant noodles and scrolling aimlessly through my phone when my mom called. Her voice was shaky, and right away I knew something was wrong. She said, "Your father and I met someone today, from your university." My chopsticks froze halfway to my mouth. My heart plummeted. Apparently, at a family gathering back home, one of my dad's old colleagues had bragged about his daughter also studying at my university. My parents got excited, thinking maybe she and I knew each other. They asked her about me. And that girl, of course, looked at them blankly and said she'd never heard of me. Not in her faculty, not in her classes, not anywhere. In that moment, on the phone, my entire world tilted. My mom's voice cracked as she asked, "Why would she say that? Are you hiding something from us?" I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred. 100 lies swirled in my head, excuses, explanations, ways to wriggle out again. But for the first time, none of them came out. All I could manage was silence. My mom kept saying my name over and over, like she was trying to pull me back into the conversation. Finally, I muttered, "I'll explain when I see you." That night, I barely slept. I just lay in the dark, listening to my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I knew this was it. The end of the performance. And yet, part of me felt strangely calm. Like I had been running from a storm for so long, and now it had finally caught me. There was no more running. When I went home that week, the atmosphere was different. My parents greeted me warmly, but I could see it in their eyes. The doubt, the confusion, the fear of what they were about to hear. We sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten dinner 1,000 times before. Except this time, instead of laughter or small talk, there was just silence. And then my dad asked, quietly but firmly, "Son, are you still a student?" I wanted to lie. God, I wanted to so badly. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. My throat tightened, my eyes burned, and before I knew it, the truth spilled out in a whisper. No! I dropped out. A year ago. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I've ever heard. My mom covered her mouth with her hand. My dad just stared at me, his face unreadable. I rushed to explain, about the pressure, about how I couldn't handle the classes, how I didn't want to disappoint them, how I thought I could fix it if I just had more time. The words tumbled out like a flood. I told them about the odd jobs, the dorm, the lies. Everything. By the time I finished, my mom was crying. My dad's hands were clenched into fists on the table. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just said in this quiet, broken voice, "Why didn't you tell us?" And that question cut deeper than anything else. Because the truth was simple. I was scared. Scared of losing their pride, their trust, their love. But sitting there, watching my mom's tears fall and my dad's shoulders slump, I realized something horrible. By lying, I had already lost all of that. The rest of that night is a blur. There were arguments, accusations, more tears. My mom asked how I could live like that, lying every day. My dad said he didn't know who I was anymore. I tried to explain that I didn't want to be a failure, that I thought I could protect them from the disappointment. But the damage was already done. In the days that followed, the house felt colder than ever. My parents barely spoke to me. When they did, it was short, sharp sentences. The pride that had once shone in their eyes when they looked at me was gone, replaced with something else. Hurt, betrayal, maybe even shame. And here's the part one didn't expect. I don't feel free. I thought confessing would lift the weight, that I'd finally breathe again. But instead, I feel emptier than ever. The lie is gone, but so is the illusion. Now I'm just left with the wreckage. I don't know what happens next. Maybe, with time, my parents will forgive me. Maybe they'll even accept that I'm not the student they wanted me to be. Or maybe I've ruined everything forever. Right now, all I know is that I broke their trust in a way that might never be fixed. And the irony? I still don't know what I want to do with my life. I burned myself alive to hide from a dream that wasn't mine, but I haven't found my own dream yet either. I'm standing in the ruins of two lives, the fake one I built for them, and the real one I've been too scared to start. So that's my confession. My parents finally know. The mask is gone. The lie is dead. And I don't know if that's a beginning or an ending. What would you have done in my place? Lied a little longer to protect the people you love, or ripped off the mask sooner, even if it meant breaking their hearts?